Okay, louder please. Oh, that's what you're going to try. Okay, that's good. Well, for this event, Fred had a special request for me. So he was saying, Peter, can you please come and steer some shit? And I told him, of course, Fred, you know that's my specialty.
That's why I went to you.
Yes, that's yes. So that is what we are going to have here, and almost the end of the day. So what we are going to talk about, what MySQL community can learn from Postgres, right? And if you wonder why we should even learn from Postgres, I'll show you, this kind of graph, right, which shows what over the last few years, PostgreSQL was doing some things more successful than MySQL, right? And I think that is probably not a surprise for anybody here. Now, before we go, in this case, what we can learn, I think it's good to look at how those two projects are structured. Now, one question to ask you is, do you guys know who owns Postgres? Nobody. Okay. And I think actually the PostgreSQL in this case is a very interesting project, right? Because it's actually different compared to a lot of other projects, and you can say, oh, this project is kind of foundation based, right? It's Apache Foundation has it, or Linux Foundation, right, or whatever. In PostgreSQL is actually owned by PostgreSQL Global Development Group, which is structured as a volunteer community. That's not a company, not an organization, right? And even more, what is interesting is what they do not ask any kind of copyright assignment. So all the copyright is owned by individual contributors, right? But they release it under that, PostgreSQL license, very permissive license, right? And that's how the PostgreSQL is available to all of us, right? Under PostgreSQL license with copyright maintained by individual contributors, right? Which I think is a very interesting. Now, the trademark is owned by PostgreSQL Community Association of Canada. Same as the main name, because there are certain things you cannot really say, hey, we are unincorporated groups of volunteers, right? And it's kind of each owns a bits of parts of that, right? With trademark or domain, you cannot do that, right? And I think it's interesting, right? What the choice is Canada, right? Not United States, also known as a Trump land these days, right? So I'm sure we're very happy now not to be in that jurisdiction. Now let's compare that to the MySQL. So who owns who owns MySQL? What?
You said you would be steering.
Yeah, okay, well, and MySQL is owned by Oracle, which again all know that. And I think this comes with like a very interesting, unique challenge MySQL has. And I think that challenge is even compared to some other projects, like which open source, well, at least at some time open source, like which are owned by like a big corporation, right? Because you think about guys like, MongoDB or Elastic, right, or some others, you can say, well, yes, we are owned by commercial entity, right? So they are going to be driven by profit entities, right? That's also the maybe public corporation, like in case of Oracle, right, which have some even more requirements, kind of to please their shareholders, right? But I think what's also important in MySQL, and this is kind of why I had this kind of ship pulling the dolphin, is what the MySQL is not the sole Oracle business, right? And that means it's kind of really is a victim in certain things which are kind of a change of that Oracle strategy. Right, so for example,
it's just one product of many.
That's right. Like in a very small part, right? Like in Oracle is what, like a 60 billion a year revenue, right, or something like that. And so like a MySQL is a small portion of that. Again, we don't really publish specifically MySQL revenues, but we know that is a small fraction of a 60 billion, right? And I think that is gives us an extra challenge in terms of how the MySQL can be influenced, not only what is good for commercial success of the MySQL itself for its corporate owner, but actually for some other, big picture, right? Like I've all heard recently, well, you know what, like Oracle looks to go all in on about AI, right? And MySQL is not a big part of that, so maybe, some bloodletting is in order. Now, honestly, I can also feel for Oracle, right, in this case. Well, yes, I know feeling empathy to Oracle is not very popular, but I have a very big heart. Because if you look at Oracle, it's as an owner of a MySQL, it has kind of this responsibility for innovation, and innovation is expensive, right? So there is a lot of cost to that. Then at the same time, if you think about as a lot of business opportunities move to the Oracle, this is not where Oracle was very successful, right? Like, and if you look at the cloud game, I mean, it's not surprising for anyone probably what Amazon is much bigger, more successful, recognized business compared to HeatWave, right? Again, I don't know exact details. I'm kind of widely wrong, but I would be very, very surprised, right? But hey, to double check, I actually do what I usually do in those cases, to go to do some very, very scientific pull on the LinkedIn. And I would go and ask, hey people, you know what, there is of course the MySQL Community Edition, which we love dearly, but there are also some proprietary editions of MySQL, right? So what do you think is kind of the most important, right? And you can see a lot of people selecting the two variants, what Amazon provides compared to, MySQL Enterprise and HeatWave. And again, I think that if you are in the Oracle shoes, that kind of sucks, right? Because you are doing a lot of that development for many, many years, right? And somebody else have been more successful commercial.
Peter, should you also include like the community? I know it's not proprietary, but the community is the other variant.
Yeah, but it's not proprietary.
Okay.
Right, that's what I'm saying. That's a most proprietary MySQL variant, because I mean, look, we all know what a MySQL community is, what majority of MySQL users work at. It's going to be like very far ahead. And also note, like LinkedIn limits us to 4 choices or more. So yeah, okay. So I think what comes with that is what there is Oracle and MySQL communities, right? They are not the same, right? They so while we learn from that, we just cannot say, hey guys, let us just do what has been worked very well for Oracle and that's going to work. Like specifically, I think what is interesting to see in the MySQL and PostgreSQL communities is a vendor or vendor's role, right? In a MySQL case, we have, I think, from a vendor-controlled community, right? Well, that is, I wouldn't say it's kind of very, very big, right? Like if you think about the biggest MySQL or focused event that Oracle pulls together, which is solely on MySQL, which is probably this. And it is not really, thousands of people, right? It's no match, for example, for like what MongoDB World is doing, right? And some other guys, right? And Oracle is saying, well, you know what, we are Oracle, and we don't like doing those like stupid little conferences. Come to the Oracle world, and you'll find all Oracle awesomeness. But that doesn't work for MySQL community. MySQL community doesn't want Oracle awesomeness and mixing with, like thousands of suits. They want the MySQL conference, right, is very focused on that, right, and that is not something what Oracle have delivered. And also we have a vendor-neutral event, but I think that is kind of, disorganized, right? Like we have, something maybe, Percona may be doing, there's some other people doing something, right? Some maybe, maybe Avian would put together about, and again, I don't want to single out anybody, but there is no, like, really vendor-neutral organization out there. In PostgreSQL, it's an opposite, right? You have a very good event-neutral series of events. There is a PostgreSQL conferences, PG Confess, there is a PG Days, like and everything, right? And what is very interesting is on those days you can see all the vendors kind of pulling out together, right? And they're saying, hey, we are promoting Postgres. Because again, nobody owns Postgres, everybody owns Postgres, and that is kind of a level playing field, right? If Enterprise DB, right, and Amazon and CyberTech, right, they all can sort of, be in the same room, right, as an equals in this case. And then additional to that, there are some vendor-specific events, right? For example, Enterprise DB puts out their event, which is sort of smaller compared to those vendor-neutral events typically. And I think what is also awesome in this case is what they are often really very much highlighting what they are part of Postgres. Hey, Enterprise DB, they offer the better Postgres, right? But they're still pushing like, well, the Postgres overall is awesome. Even if you are not running Enterprise DB, but if you are part of Oracle ecosystem, want to be there because they understand what the most important thing is to grow a PostgreSQL cake, right? And that's kind of lifts everybody. Another thing I want to mention in this case, which if you look at the ecosystem, right, for MySQL community, it's not just MySQL Server. And I mention that because, well, MySQL Server and some other companies are sort of that's, proprietary things done by Oracle, and Oracle promotes them as they choose fit. But there is a lot of other cool things exist out there, right? We can see in this room, well, PostgreSQL is a very, I think, an important and valuable part of a MySQL ecosystem. But if I go to my developer resources at the mysql.com, where do I find PostgreSQL, right? Or any other amazing stuff, right? Community created, right? There's like a tools for, like dbeaver, right? For example, another like very popular GUI tool for MySQL is not there. And I think that is another challenge what we have out there is what we are not showing all the goodness what exists in the MySQL space, because the only space there is like controlled by Oracle, right? And they are not have been interested in showcasing stuff which is outside of what Oracle is, right? And I think that goes to the cases how really the open source innovation works, which I think is like two important criteria here, right? Which PostgreSQL works very well. One is it is permissionless, right? You don't really need anybody permissionless to go and figure out some things about Postgres. Do PostgreSQL fork, right? Maybe write an extension, and so on and so forth, right? And then you also would see what in a PostgreSQL's case, co-petition is what drives it off, right? So it's often based on their on the co-petition, then people compete and cooperate at the same time, right? And I think there is opportunity for that in MySQL space, which is currently, not very well leveraged. Now, let's talk a little bit about the communities, what we have. Now, when people talk about the community specifically as it relates to the database and then Postgres, right, I like to talk about the very three distinct communities, right? One is the largest one, is a MySQL users, right, which are just using MySQL for their application. DBAs, developers, right, they, never contributed a single line of code to MySQL. They most likely don't, are not C programmers, right, and so on and so forth, right? And that is the largest group, right? Then there are contributors, like a small one, and say, hey, you know what, we want to make MySQL better, contribute some code, right? And then there are vendors, right? And this is also a very important group. Well, the companies like, Percona, number of others, right, which are making business around that by offering software, services, cloud, wherever to their customers. So let's see what do we have right now. I think if you look at the users community in MySQL, with all the challenges, it is the most helpful, right? Because, well, frankly, it doesn't compete with anyone, right? There's community for MySQL, the same as for Oracle or Microsoft SQL Server, right? All the vendors usually like to support their groupers to some extent, right? We have some Oracle event coming up, right? And we have the commitment to do some more support, right, for user groups and event. We have some independent user activities happening. I think if you look at what Oracle sponsors there is a substantial vendor bias in this case, which present, right? Like for example, again, I don't know where the question is what they did not submit or haven't been like accepted, but event like this, while companies like us, Percona, right, or PostgreSQL, LineScale, kind of like a small fish, is welcome, right? We don't have a lot of talks about RDS or Aurora here, but frankly, again, for MySQL community, those are more relevant than something like a heat wave, right? Well,
I can answer the question. They didn't submit anything. So, but there were, if they would have been welcome for sure.
Well,
in this event.
Okay. Well, I mean, that makes sense. Like, I mean, in micro, I think in the certain cases, right, I think it is the history and the perception, right, like in this case. It would be accepted, maybe they believe, they wouldn't be, right, or you think you should have offered the olive branch to them and say, hey guys, you know what, you are important part of this community and you want me here. Because let's face it, right, despite like what had been said earlier in the day-to-day, the Oracle has a reputation of being, well, a little bit hostile to certain members of the ecosystem, right? And if that is changing...
I haven't met him because but we have somebody from AWS in the...
Yeah. I mean, we get like some, pretty senior manager from MySQL came, and that's awesome. Oh, and by the way, one other thing to mention from the user community, while this is not directly MySQL release, we are from Percona side, we started Percona Lives events. We'll take one in Bay Area in spring, right, and then we'll hopefully come back in Europe in the fall. Okay, so if you look at the contributors community, right, I think that is where MySQL is substantially worse compared to Postgres, because the people who want to contribute to MySQL and who happen not to work at Oracle would be unwelcome second-class citizen, right? You only kind of get access to what Oracle has done. Later on, there is no even idea about what people are working on, right? So you may be working on a feature, and then boom, if a new code dump, Oracle has implemented the stuff you're working on, right? Or boom, right? It's actually requires you to rewrite a whole bunch of stuff because of wherever some stuff has been done, right? There is not really community involvement in governance. Again, to be fair, I think there have been some announcements today in the morning about that may be changing. Development are done in private, and really, if you think about the contributors, there is opportunity to innovate in tools. And there have been a lot of very, very good tools which have been built by community through, through years, right? But especially in recent years, contributing to the core of MySQL has been, well, complicated. And then, if you think about vendors, I think that is the most confusing, right? Like in my talks, when I speak about like vendors and community, right? I think it's not really kind of understood, right? Because from a commercial software standpoint, it usually goes, oh, if you want us kind of to work together, why don't we be partners and we sign some agreements when you promise us not to do this and do that, right, and whatever. But I'm saying, hey guys, you know what, we can cooperate on the open source project. But at the same time, I'm not signing any freaking paperwork your lawyers about, right? Because you will grab me by the balls, right? And actually, I am going to compete bitterly with you in a sales environment, and I don't want in any way to be prevented from that, with which partnership agreements typically required, right? And I remember even kind of in the early day at Percona, right? Frankly, I did a lot of that stuff with MySQL, but there was like, oh, if you want to show up to, with Sun, I think, that if you want to show up to our conference, you guys have to sign this stuff, but you promise not to compete with us. Or like, oh, you want to be, let's say, our partner, yeah, we can send you some consulting business, but you guys have to agree not to, I don't know, not to promote MySQL Enterprise and wherever, right? So I think it's very important to understand, if you look at the open source, that's kind of really acceptance. Hey, there are going to be vendors, right, which for a number of reasons may not want to have commercial relationship, right? But at the same time, they can compete on making ecosystem better and healthy. Okay. Now, let's talk about their opportunities. And I think this is, again, my own opinionated ideas for MySQL realities, right? One thing, I think what's reality is what the things are, better together, right? What I mean in this case, if we can see how all the players in the MySQL ecosystem, MySQL community, right, can work together with Oracle support, right, that would be better. We already have a fragmentation in MySQL ecosystem, right, with MariaDB, right, and it would not be best if its fragmentation continues, right? But of course, that requires a number of willingness and do certain things from Oracle standpoint. Like the biggest thing, I think, in my opinion, where we have this issue is the governance, right? In terms of what is MySQL, who decide the future in terms of what features go in the open source project that is. And again, I think there are different choices here, right? Of course, in my dreams, I have a dream. Well, in my dreams, right, it would be MySQL in some sort of, Apache Foundation or something else, license under permission, license with governance, right, where Oracle is an important member but is not kind of controlling it. Well, while it would be wonderful, I'm not sure to what extent that's right. But at the same time, at least it would be, I think, great if you have some sort of technical governance, right, where you have maybe Oracle control, but have some community, elected representative, right, where we can make sure there is that communication going, right, like this. And again, I think in the morning today we have in certain states, right, from what I heard, frankly, and what I didn't like it all, saying, oh, we will pick, like if you're Oracle Ace and so on and so forth, right? If you pick the guys which you like in the MySQL community, right, and say, oh, those guys are going to be representatives.
This is not really what we said. We said we will use the Ace, Oracle Ace for MySQL, the rock stars, and you are part of it, so you know who else it is, and also like the big contributors. I cannot go outside and say, oh guys, I have used once MySQL, and let me decide on the roadmap. We need to at least
I understand, but I think in this case is what Mr. Fred, right, like an Oracle employee, right?
We said,
what's that?
This is what we showed this
No,
morning.
I understand, but in your space, speaking in this case, right, you as an Oracle employee, picking the people who are worthy, right? I'm not saying is what it should be people who can do it only once, right, and be kind of, give him a free ticket ride to Redwood City, right, and whatever, right? Of course not. But what I'm saying is what community should elect its own representatives. Not you, Fred, right? But the MySQL users, right? That's what I'm saying. Because rock stars are just the same, right? Like a rock stars, like as I understand the process, right? That's.
I know, the first one was me. Now the rock star are elected by the other rock stars.
I understand, but the genesis, right?
Yeah.
That seed was already infected by Oracle, Fred.
Then you will blame Monty because he has done MySQL at the first time, right?
But I'm one of your rock stars, right? Yeah. So I mean, but I'm saying that is not really the proper process, right? If you want to signal of
There hasn't been a mechanism to do. There hasn't been a mechanism to do that. You're right. Probably that would be the right way to do it, but there isn't right now. So so what's been done up to now is the best option out.
Oh, I understand, right? And I understand if you say, hey, you know, like you want to get like a rock stars or whatever. Let's say some people can form some initial selection, whatever, right? And they can self-govern.
And then maybe
that is good.
When we do these meetings, you say, oh, this is we want to process otherwise on another plan. We can discuss at that time, and maybe it happened, maybe not. I don't know that we.
Okay.
It will be.
Okay. Well, that's.
But I think we are open to the discussion.
That's good. That's good.
But of course, I cannot say, okay, you know, it's like. It's like NBA. You don't want to have Bronny James playing the All-Star game because everybody voted for him and he's the worst, one of the worst players. So we should have some, you know, like, and I think this is why I proposed to the Rockstar, and because the Rockstar, they are MySQL, not really linked to Oracle by itself. I would say like an ACE, right? You don't need points, you don't need anything. It's just because you did something great.
Yeah, well, I mean, should you invite the AWS Data Heroes, which is a similar program, right? There are a bunch of people
and
who
also
out there, right? Because you know, if you think about what the Oracle is good at selecting good database people, or you know, AWS is probably not.
And this is what I was going to say. And there was the Rockstar, the ACE, and also contributors. So if Amazon is part of the good contributors or contributing code, they might be part. No, if they do nothing for MySQL, not showing up, what can we do?
Okay, yeah, I think you have like a comment on the back.
I also think that there's some middle grounds, right? So there's things like a customer advisory board or a technical advisory board where there's a two-week feedback session and some more formality. Like, I think there's some things that aren't full governance by the community and full.
Oh yeah, I mean that's what I mean, right? Because I'm saying like, hey, if you have a technical board, you can have mostly represented by Oracle. You have a final decision in this case. But I think the point here is what we are looking for, at least some sort of, you know, transparency, right? Because if it's, you know, it says, hey guys, you know, like boom, that is what we done. Not very helpful. Okay. The next stuff in this case is I would encourage also for us to build in public, right? And that means, in my opinion, like a public roadmap, right? And really the you know, the code as it's kind of being developed, right? So people can participate. And I think that can include both contribution, but also what is very important, you know, quality and usability, right? Because right now, the only way the majority of the users can commit, you know, comment on something stuff, and it's already done. And it's done, it's shipped, and it cannot be changed. Right? Not the best thing. I think what you also need to make sure what we have really support their, you know, co-petition, this kind of a multi vendor ecosystem, is accept that, right? Again, if you look at this case, like an Oracle is of course doing that kind of, you know, commercial things, but there are a lot of people which want to be part of MySQL ecosystems, part of MySQL ecosystem, but they are choosing to do business, you know, elsewhere, right? And I think that is probably one of the sticking point in this case, right? I mean, I'm not quite sure what that is, you know, understood pretty well, right? And Oracle understand cooperation part of competition is what helping other players in this case kind of to succeed can, you know, or help the whole ecosystem to succeed. And for part of that is of course connected to what I stated at the start, right? When you have Amazon and they already having the biggest piece of a pie, right? And it's not like at this point they are contributing a lot of back in MySQL open source. Okay, now another thing what I think in this case is a lot of stuff what I said, it depends of course on the Oracle goodwill. To what extent they will change the development model or governance, right? Or even in a wildest dream, right? Maybe donate MySQL to some nice foundation. But there are a lot of stuff what I think is in our hand as a community. Some of you know what we are organizing the special sort of like a group on Monday, right, which we call Summit for MySQL Community. We did one in the Bay Area. We'll do another one, here on Monday, right? If somebody is interested in attend, maybe you haven't heard about it yet, then well, here's a page or QR code for you to figure out. Now, what the other opportunity, right? I think which is exists very much, right? Which I said is what even wherever we are talking about any other things on the code level, but we really need some sort of vendor-neutral MySQL hub, which I don't think Oracle is very interested in providing so far, and I think that corresponds to various, events, content, making sure we have a place that if I am new to MySQL, I can discover software, I can discover services from wonderful vendor, where I can get a cloud-hosted MySQL. Something like what you can see with PostgreSQL .org, but frankly that can be done a lot better. And then let me finish up with another shameless plug. This is the year where Percona turns 20 years. We talked about 30 years, just the 20 years here. So we created also like a little website out there, and if you have some story how maybe Percona impacted your life, right, or how we fucked your database, like whatever, we want like all kind of feedback. It just have to be fun and inspiring or not, right? And we would like to hear from you. And with that, that's all I have to say.